For being with us this week. Now, this week, the Prime Minister set out plans to lift many of the remaining COVID restrictions in England. There are plans to scrap social distancing and even mask wearing, as well as opening nightclubs. A final decision will be made on Monday, and if everything goes to plan, the rules will be lifted just a week after that. Let me ask you first, James McCleary, what do you make of these plans? You and, of course, the Prime Minister are putting the onus here then on personal choice, but there is a concern here that we're not making choices just for ourselves, we're making choices for other people, and spreading the virus, which clearly we will do if we're not wearing masks and we're associating with larger groups of people, that could increase the risk of new variants. Some people have talked about us creating almost a variant factory in this country. But inevitably, it will add pressure on the NHS too. So that is affecting the lives of other people. It's not just personal choice here, is it?
Well, I think inherently.
Try telling that to the people I saw on the train on the way back from London the other day, who, when confronted by another passenger, a perfectly reasonable guy who asked these young lads why they weren't wearing a mask, they were obnoxious to him, they were disrespectful, they made fun of the situation. I don't think you're right necessarily in every situation that we are respecting other people. What would you say about those people who choose, even now, when we're supposed to be wearing them, not to wear masks?
Well, I think what you're describing.
Very quick thought about whether we can turn back if this path is a mistake, Caroline. The Prime Minister used to use the word irreversible in connection with his roadmap. He seems less sure of that idea now. Are there circumstances in which it would be appropriate to reintroduce restrictions in the future?
I'm sure that.
Sorry to jump in. Let's talk a bit more then about the specifics of this piece of legislation, if we may. Obviously, I explained that you're campaigning against these laws to make it easier for police to arrest people in illegal camps and take further action. What effect would these laws have on gypsies and travellers then?
So for the people that it's in shame.
We will talk to a Conservative MP in just a moment who voted for this legislation earlier in the week. And I'm sure that the Conservatives would say we're not trying to assimilate anyone or destroy anyone. We are simply trying to give powers to help somebody whose land is camped on and who didn't give permission and who wants it back. Why shouldn't you be able to call the police and have somebody moved on in that situation?
The fact is the carrot.
Sorry to talk over you again, Jay. One day we will be off Zoom and the world will be a much happier place for television journalists as a consequence and everybody else. But I do want to just bring James in as well. I don't want to end this topic without giving James a chance. James McCleary, when it comes to public spaces and places like parks, where do you sit on this one? What is the right measure? And Caroline said it was a small minority of gypsies and travellers who move on to illegal sites. What would you be minded to do to tackle this?
I think
that was Marcella Whittingdale with what looks like a brilliant marketing video for Eastbourne there, Caroline. Let's pick up on this idea of a unique selling point. Marina Novelli in the film there, she's a tourism professor. She's lived in the town for 20 years. She says you need a USP. I think her phrase was niching. Places like Brighton or Margate feel to me as though they've got one. Do you think Eastbourne has one? And if it hasn't, does it need to come up with one?
This sector.
Let's move across to Lewes. Not terribly far away. Obviously a very different kind of town to Eastbourne. As the council leader, James, do you feel it's the responsibility of politicians to encourage new kinds of visitors? Or do you just sit back and think, Lewes knows what it's doing, let's let Lewes be Lewes?